Hello and welcome to Charch Chat here at opensports.com. I am Paul Charchian from League Safe. Thank you for joining us. It's week one. And what does everybody say in week one? Don't panic. Don't overreact in week one. I say the opposite. Panic. Absolutely panic. I think there's so much to learn in week one. You know, the NFL isn't like baseball. If a baseball team something happens in the first game of the season, it doesn't matter. This is different. There are only 16 games, and teams are laying it all out in front of you right here in the very first week. There's so many things you can learn in week one. I think you should really treat week one like near gospel for most of the things that you see. And obviously, things will change, and that's fine, and we accept that, and not everything that happened here is going to hold all 16 games, and that's obvious. But there's so much to learn, and if you don't believe me, let's go back to last week, and let me point out some of the things that went against conventional wisdom through week one of last year, where if you had reacted in week one, you'd have been ahead of the curve when everybody else is saying, "Oh, I'm going to stand pat. I don't want to overreact in week one." You react in week one, and here's some of the things you could have learned from last year. One, the Saints offense was going to be inconsistent. They scored just 10 points in week one. Second, Ben Roethlisberger, coming off the horrible season that he had the previous season, in week one, 4 touchdown passes. He went on to throw 32 over the course of the season. That the Rams were in trouble. They put up just 13 points against a mediocre Carolina defense, and that was when they were healthy, and so there was a hand being tipped there. Adrian Peterson, good back. 5.5 yards per carry, ran for over 100 yards. Randy Moss and Tom Brady started an electrifying style, and that continued over the course of the season. Obviously, we knew Brady was going to be good, but most people didn't know how good Brady and Moss were going to be, and a lot of people didn't like Moss at all and felt that he was going to get injured or that he was a psychopathic risk or whatever. We verified that Vince Young can't pass, and he was a guy that people had people had Vince Young in their top 10 of quarterbacks going into last year. He went on to throw 9 touchdown passes, and he would run for only 3 last year. The Chicago offense, including Cedric Benson, terrible. They were terrible in week one, and a lot of people really liked Cedric Benson coming into last year. So you could have learned about that. Tony Romo. Now, if you remember, going back to the prior season, Tony Romo had that really bad December, January, which culminated in the botched hold for the field goal that would have won the game, the playoff game for Dallas. And then coming into the next season, last year, nobody knew what to expect. But Tony Romo, week one of last year, 4 touchdown passes, 345 yards. Obviously a sign that he was going to be okay, and he was great for the rest of the season. Marion Barber III, a scoring machine, also in Dallas. Jason Witten led the team in receptions and yards in week one, also a sign of things to come. Rudy Johnson did not score an average 2.5 yards per carry. That ended up being another sign of things to come. Larry Johnson, 43 yards, no touchdowns. Johnson would end up not scoring until week 6. And Matt Leinart looked like he wasn't going to be the answer, going all the way back to week one, and just 100 yards and 1 touchdown pass for him. So that's why I can tell you, week one, and by the way, we could go on. I mean, I'm limiting it here to get some of the things that were the really strong plays or really broke with conventional wisdom. And these things sound obvious now, but if you go back to the mindsets that people had before week one of last year, these were all things that were surprises. Okay, so for this week, what does it mean? Go through and look at this week, and I really believe that you can bank on most of what you see here. So, what that means for you and your league varies by scoring system, who's available, who's not available, but don't be sheepish about admitting draft mistakes, trading guys that still have some value and might not. I mean, imagine if you'd have traded Cedric Benson and Rudy Johnson at the end of week one last year. That could have helped save your season while they still had some value. So, don't be afraid to acknowledge your mistakes from the draft. Go ahead, believe a lot of what you see in week one. Now, obviously, again, not all of it will hold up, but a lot of it will, and there's some really strong trends that you're already seeing here in week one. All right, thank you for watching. Paul Charchian here at opensports.com.
So you think you can tackle a pro? There's only one way to find out. Click on fantasy at opensports.com.